Hello pianists, you just heard a performance demonstration of Little Scherzo by E.L. Lancaster. This comes from Alfred's Group Piano for Adults, Book 1, on page 64. As you noticed, it's a spirited, kind of modern sounding beginning repertoire piece, which will allow you as the pianist to practice some key beginning piano skills. I'm going to play it a second time through. That way you can notice some of the details I added the first time to encourage you to go through our musical learning pyramid and add your own details. So the demonstration that you just heard was a poor demonstration, lacking all of those articulations and phrase shaping and dynamics that we'll talk about today. So let's start with our musical learning pyramid, the top part, the style and mood to inform all of the details we need to add. So the title, Little Scherzo, it's a miniature version of a scherzo, which is a title often used as the third movement of a symphony, sonata, or a string quartet. During the 19th century, meaning the 1800s, the scherzo replaced minuet. I played another performance of the minuet, which you can check out as well. A minuet is a stately dance of the aristocracy. A scherzo, unlike a minuet, is known for being a swiftly moving piece full of dramatic surprises. Composers such as Beethoven, Mendelssohn, and Chopin love to write these dramatic scherzos. So keep those details in mind as we go back down to the rhythm of our piece. So let's look at our time signature first. We're in 2/4. I analyze it and I notice that the hands are playing in the same rhythms all the way through up to measure 15. Measure 15, left hand is in chord notes, right hand's in eighth notes. Patterns, I see many groupings of eighth notes. I see a couple 16ths blurred into eighth notes. So I would count the eighth note as you first learn this piece, thinking 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Make sure you keep counting through the long notes so you don't shortchange all of those eighth note beats that should be present. All right, let's go into the note reading category of our musical learning pyramid. Something that I noticed right off the bat is I expect to see a bass clef in the second part of my grand stop. Notice it's 2 treble clefs. I'm going to be up higher. You might even find it feels more comfortable just to move your body over almost to the right of middle C to play this piece. I start looking for landmark notes. I'm going to look at my right hand first. Starts on a treble C with my thumb. Highest pitch, at least for measures 1 through 8, is a G. So it's a 5-finger scale on C. Warm up on that. The left hand starts on an E, which is a third above middle C or third below G. If I look measures 1 through 8, the left hand gets to a B. So the thumbs are a step apart. Keep that in mind, that way you can feel this piece and not have to watch your hands. This is an excellent piece for learning how to shift your hands with small position changes and not watch them. So as I look through it, measure 9, I notice that my lowest notes are now D and B. So I would practice moving that down by a step. Measure 11, it goes down by another step or a second. Measure 13, down another second. And then if I look at D, C al fine, that means da capo al fine. Da capo in Italian means the head of the piece. So I see that and I go back to the beginning. Fine meaning the end. I would finish up at measure 8, just like a written out repeat there. So I would suggest you use that reduction practice. You can play open fifths or triads and just practice moving from my starting position of C's and E's down to D's and B's, measure 11, A's and C's, measure 13, G's and B's, and see if you can move it back up and not have to watch your hands. That way you can trust your hands, you can watch the score for all of the details as well. All right, once you've gone through getting those position shifts comfortable, you could go through and analyze the intervals where it's the same, up by steps, same, down by a second, up a third, down a second, up a third, down by seconds. So I notice my patterns are primarily scalar. A couple skips in there. You might want to go through and circle your skips so you don't miss those. Anything that's different than the pattern, you'll have to maybe make a mark to help you remember. Next, we'll learn into the articulation category of our musical learning pyramid. Most of the playful, energetic nature really comes from the articulations of this piece. It's full of at least 4 different types of articulations. And notice the very first pitches are staccatos. Play these very short and crisp so it sounds mischievous. And I have a slur, stay into the keys, short. Imagine the keys are hot. Measure 4, notice the line above and below those notes. That's called a tenuto. It means you emphasize it, you kind of press a little bit heavier with some arm weight to get that note to sing out. So the second type of articulation you notice that we have are smooth slurs. So contrast those staccatos by staying smooth into the keys. You can use some wrist circles. The right hand will scoop under, left hand will scoop over. The first note of those slurs would be slightly heavier. So you can just go through and isolate all of those 3-note slurs basically to play it from a louder to a little softer volume. The third type of articulation is those tenutos that you'll press into the keys like you have at measure 4, measure 8, and then we also have a combination at measure 10 with a staccato and tenuto. So this would be less crisp than just a straight staccato, but they would still be detached in between. I'm going to play measure 13 to 14. And then notice measure 15 is the only measure that has 2 different types of articulations between the hands. The left hand, kind of a sticky type of staccato. The right hand would be shorter. The hands can lift together. Lift, lift, and end with that tenuto. So just take some time going slowly to make sure those articulations, you have 4 different types of sounds you're going for. Next, we'll move up into the dynamics. Voicing is the first thing that I consider. And this piece is kind of difficult to tell which hand do I want to play louder because they're really parallel melodies. They're just in that beautiful 6th apart all the way through. So you get to decide. Typically we voice the higher melody. That's kind of just easier to hear. So you could play the right hand louder and left hand silent play. And on the da capo al fine, maybe you could play the left hand louder, right hand silent play. It's really up to your taste. I don't think you could go wrong with either hand, but make a clear distinction that one of the hands is voiced louder than the other. All right, let's go into phrase shaping. First, you have to decide how long are my phrases. I think the first 4 measures really go together with the musical idea. That's the same as measure 5 to 8. The 9 to 10. Sounds like one idea there. So I would do 2 measure phrases. Here's 11. 2 measure phrase. Once you have your phrase lengths decided, go in and think about phrase goals, which I've included on the score as arrows. And you'll notice on this score that I've made the stem of the arrows varied in length. That's to show as they're longer, it's a louder phrase goal. If it's a shorter stem, it's a softer phrase goal. So that's the point of my phrase I want to play the loudest. I grow to it. Listen with that in mind. There's a goal, bring it back down. Even more. Start loud enough. Goal, a little less, least. Slight goal, crescendo. To add just a little polka retardando at the end of the piece to bring it to a close. Have fun learning through this scherzo, go through this learning pyramid, pay attention to correct rhythms, you feel your 8th note all the way through, find where your hands are at, just practice shifting down so you get comfortable where your hands are supposed to be at without having to watch them, but trust that. Those articulations are incredibly important, get those contrasts with the 4 types. Phrase shaping with the phrase goals and voicing, and then it sounds like a fun, mischievous scherzo. Thanks for listening.